Welcome everybody. I'm Phil Ingrassia with RVDA and welcome to this retail warranty reimbursement webinar. Always a interesting topic and a complex topic, especially in the RV industry where there's a lot of state laws that differ and the product, whether it's a towable or motorized product, can impact some of the laws surrounding retail warranty reimbursement. And we're fortunate to have a couple of gentlemen from Bellavia Blatt, the law firm that does dealerlaw.com. They're an RVDA associate member. You may have seen some of their information in RV Executive Today over the last few months, and they're real experts in this area. I do want to remind everybody that this is not RVDA giving legal advice on this issue. However, what Ken and Keith are going to share with you today, give you some real good strategies as you look at your warranty reimbursement process. So I'm going to turn it over to you, gentlemen, and look forward to your information today.
Great. Well, thank you, Phil, for the kind words and introduction. As always, it's a pleasure working with the team at RVDA. I'm Keith Given. I'm the managing attorney here at Bellavia Blatt. Ken, Laura, and I are excited to be here, and thanks everyone for joining. We're here to discuss an area that's truly important for RV dealers to understand: retail warranty reimbursement. Whether you're here to gain an understanding of how the laws can help your dealerships or get a general overview of the process, we'll discuss all the crucial points. Just to give you a brief overview of our agenda here on slide 2 is our overview. Number 1, the difference between a statutory and manufacturer submission for an increase in your parts and labor rates, including eligibility, timing considerations, and just the general submission process. We'll also discuss the relevant legal aspects of retail warranty reimbursement, how the statutes will benefit you as a dealer, and tips and best practices to ensure that you're maximizing your dealership's reimbursement rates.
Great. Thanks, Keith. My name's Ken Lohr, and just to give you a little bit of background, I have extensive fixed ops background. I'm not the attorney here on the call. Keith is. So our firm has basically 2 parts to the retail warranty reimbursement side. We have the legal side, and then we have the fixed ops side, so the operational side. And that's the part that probably will interest you more than anything, is how to do this, how it's done, and how it affects you. So I'll talk a lot about that today, but a little bit of housekeeping. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions because this is new to a lot of you on the call. So at the end of our presentation, we will give you an email address, and you can email us or even call us. We'll have our phone number up there to discuss your specific situation, because as Phil described, the statutes in the various states are different. So it would be too complicated to get on a chat message during the presentation to answer some of the questions. They could be kind of detailed. So that'll take care of some of the housekeeping. We should not keep you longer than 40 minutes today. We'll be really respectful of your time. We know how busy you are, so we want to get you back to running your business and not spending all your time on a webinar today. So we hope to make it as interesting and informative as possible. So with all that said, right today, there are 35 states that have statutes that apply to RV dealers. Now, to give you a little bit of a comparison, a little bit of background, on the automotive side, Bellavia Blatt has been involved in retail warranty reimbursement for 20 plus years. So there have been statutes on the books for automobile dealers for 35 plus years. But this is something relatively new to the RV world. And today there are 50 states that have statutes for automotive dealers, but not RV dealers. So there's 35 states that we have statutes for. And again, if you have questions, you can email us or call us, but I'm going to bring up a slide and I'll show you which states have statutes. So retail warranty reimbursement at retail enables RV dealers to receive reimbursement for not just labor, but warranty parts at retail prices. So we're going to talk about how that is calculated, and you just don't call the manufacturer and say, hey, I'm getting $160 an hour from my customers, that's what I want you to pay me. There is a definitive process that you have to go through to establish what your labor rates are and what your parts markups are on the retail side. But with all that said, this can definitely make a difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in net profit for your dealership. And as you know, any additional revenue that you get on the warranty parts gross side or the labor side, generally speaking, that's going to go right to your bottom line as net profit. So it's really, really important that you capture that, especially in today's world where today we're all enjoying a really tight inventory supply and our grosses are up. And this is industry-wide, not just in the RV industry, but in the automotive side too. But we know that probably that's going to change. And we're going to be back to relying on our fixed operations to really, really pull the weight of your dealership. So it's really important that we start looking hard at that and capture all the gross that we can. So anyway, this is different from the traditional market area labor rate requests that you've done in the past, where you just, the manufacturer, you request from the manufacturer an increase in your labor rate. They may tell you, hey, give us 25 repair orders that establish what your retail rate is, and we'll give that consideration. And you may ask for something like, say, $140 an hour, and the manufacturer says, well, I don't really want to pay you $140. We'll just pay you $130. Well, the difference in a statutory filing is if you establish your rate to be $140 and you follow the guidelines of the statute, the manufacturer has to pay you $140. They can't say, well, we're going to pay you $130. They have to pay you what it is that you established based on the statute. So we wanted to make that clear. So Keith, I know Keith's going to talk a little bit more about some of the legal issues. So go ahead, Keith. And
Sure. Thanks, Ken. And just to piggyback on a couple things that Ken was just saying is, looking at the bottom line, obtaining retail rates, as Ken said, can have a tremendous impact on your profits. And we're here to help you just do that. And these statutory filings, they're covered by the past legislation for each respective state. It's really they're designed to support the dealers. But moving on to this slide for legal details, just to give you a brief overview, originally the manufacturer set warranty reimbursement rates at what would be deemed reasonable. However, this was unfair as these rates were much lower than the retail customer rates. Dealers objected to these guidelines and presented challenges to kind of level the playing field. So over time, states began to pass laws permitting dealers to obtain the retail rates of reimbursement for the warranty work. Now, as we both mentioned, there are 35 states that now provide statutory filing guidelines to help the RV dealers obtain the retail rates. Keep in mind, the state statutes that provide for retail reimbursement are both for labor and parts rates. Therefore, the RV dealers are entitled to the same rates, labor rates, and the parts markup rates on warranty work and customer pay. Now, in terms of the permissible timing of the submissions, it really is state specific. And as Ken said, if you have specific questions about your state, about your dealership, you could submit those questions to us after. Give us a call. We'll be happy to discuss it in further detail. So, just briefly, your state law may allow you to file for an increase annually or potentially more frequently, depending upon what state you're in.
yeah, typically it's an annual or a every 12 months or a calendar year.
Right.
There are some states, a few, that allow you to go as many times as you want. There are some states that are twice a year. So they're all different, like Keith said. So specific questions, just direct them to us and we'll let you know what those are. Here's the states that have statutes as of today. These have been well researched by our legal team. So we won't go through all of them, but if you want to kind of look at it and see if you're on that slide, we do have a statute for you. So those are the 35 states that have statutes that affect RV dealers. And as Phil said, some are different. Some apply to both towables and motorized vehicles. Some apply to motorized and not towables. They're all different. So that's why just email us and we'll let you know how it applies to your specific state. Okay, so again, retail warranty reimbursement. Many of the state statutes, even for RV dealers, have been in effect for many years. And I think the awareness level in the RV industry has not been as strong as it has been in the automotive side. So I think that's pretty fair to say. So one of the things that we want to try and accomplish today is to bring the awareness level up to a much higher level and let everybody know what they're entitled to. So that's why I kind of highlighted everything in yellow here that I wanted to emphasize. So the awareness factor is a pretty big issue. We just want to let everybody know what they're entitled to. And most of the dealers that do know if they're entitled to retail pricing, they haven't filed because the process is very complicated, and there hasn't really been anybody there to help them do that. So we're kind of the only people in the space today, the only firm that does what we do for RV dealers. We know of nobody else. There's other people that do it for the automotive side, but on the RV side, we think that we're the only firm that provides that service. So that has kind of contributed to a lack of awareness. But most automotive dealers to date have taken advantage of this opportunity, and many file on a yearly basis or whatever the law provides them. So you can do this too. So it's really important that you capture that additional gross profit. So a couple examples on the RV side: if you're not receiving cost plus 50% or more on parts, or your labor reimbursement at 93 to 95% of your current retail door rate, that's something you really need to look at. And most of the RV manufacturers are only paying us cost plus 30% on our parts. Is that pretty close, Phil, would you say, that you're hearing?
Yeah, and again, in some of the RV states that have specific franchise laws, that is in their specific RV franchise law.
Yeah, and I've talked to, believe it or not, some of the states that don't have the minimum requirements on parts reimbursements is the 30% that Phil mentioned. I've even talked to some RV dealers that are only collecting 15 to 20% on specific lines that they handle. So I know that on the automotive side, you couldn't stay in business collecting 15 or 20% markup on your parts on warranty repairs. It's not profitable. So again, it's really important that we take a hard look at that and try and capture that additional gross that you're entitled to receive. I put a slide up here to try and illustrate what I feel is probably an average RV dealer. So to explain how I did this, I have a before and after column on this slide. On the blue column, this is the before. So typical dealer would have warranty part sales of, say, $500,000 a year. And the gross would be about $115,000 a year on those warranty part sales, which equates to cost plus 30%, or a warranty parts gross profit retention of 23%. That's the number you would see in your financial statement. I also assumed that warranty labor sales were a little bit more than parts at $725,000 a year, which equates to 6,000 hours a year at the $120 an hour rate. So looking at that, let's just assume that you were at $150+ an hour on the retail side, and we captured $140 and got your rate to $140, you would get an additional $120,000 in gross profit. On the parts side, if we got you up to cost plus 50, or whatever the number was, some dealers are more than that, some are less, but let's just assume it's cost plus 50, that would make a difference, an additional $76,000 a year in warranty parts gross. So roughly a couple $100,000 a year in additional gross. And again, most of that's going to go right to the bottom line. So I just wanted to illustrate that to show everybody what those numbers potentially could be. And yours could be less, and there's some dealers that are larger and they could be much more than that, but that'll give you some idea where we are. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today is how this process works. So I'll spend a little bit of time on what it is that we actually do to establish your rate. So the first thing that I want to talk about is you just can't call the manufacturer and tell them again that, hey, my markup is cost plus 50% on the retail side. That's what I want you to pay me. It doesn't work that way. So the statutes, most statutes require us to establish our rates based on 100 qualified repair orders. So we're going to talk about that a lot, so I may as well go ahead and define that for you. So a qualified repair order is simply a retail repair order, a customer paid repair order, that had the vehicle been under warranty at the time of repair, it would have been covered under warranty. So for example, let's just say we had a refrigerator fail, right? And the customer spent $1,500 replacing the refrigerator. Well, that unit would have been covered under warranty had the vehicle been under warranty. So we're going to use that repair to establish our labor rate and our parts markup. So we need 100 of those repair orders in sequence to establish our rates. So that's why we call that the 100 qualified repair order methodology. And most statutes today require that. So that's what 100 qualified repair orders are. Now, to take that a little bit further, you just can't go into your DMS, or your dealer management system, and pick the best 100 qualified repair orders. You have to actually submit all the repair orders that are in sequence that you extracted the 100 qualified repair orders from. So in other words, the manufacturer and the statutes are not going to allow you to cherry pick the best repair orders. You have to include all the qualified repair orders. So we'll talk a little bit more about that too. So one of the things that you have to do is you have to select the best data that will give you the best result. So we all know that we have seasonality issues and some things change depending on the time of year. So most statutes allow us to look back 180 days. So we can go back 6 months and we can use repair order data from 6 months ago. So that's really important to understand, because that gives us the opportunity to look really hard at your data and select the best repair order sequence that will give you the best result. So that's something to consider. Again, the next part of the process is we have to extract the required number of repair orders, which typically could be 1,000 repair orders or 3,000 repair orders, depending on the level of repair work that you do at your particular store. So in other words, we may need 1,000 repair orders of all types to extract 100 qualified repair orders. So in this process, you're reviewing a lot of data to extract the 100 qualified repair orders. So it's, as you might imagine, it's very time consuming. Then we identify the required number of qualified repair orders by reviewing each and every repair order. And every statute's different, so we have to make sure that we're complying with your particular state statute as to what a qualified repair order is. And then we have to validate that all the parts that we use to establish your parts markup are OEM parts. So we have to validate those, that they're not parts that the manufacturer would not use. We call them aftermarket parts. Then, of course, we have to validate that each qualified repair order complies with your particular state statute. And again, there are different nuances in every statute, so you have to make sure that you understand what your particular statute allows you to do and what they don't allow you to do. And then we have to calculate the markup and the labor rate for each qualified repair order. And then once we do that, we have to do that 100 times. So as you might imagine, it's a pretty complicated process and it is very time consuming. So to put it in perspective, we get a lot of calls at our firm from dealers that have tried to do this on their own. And there isn't any reason why you can't, but just understand that it takes roughly 40 plus hours of our time to do an analysis to establish what your rates are. So, and we do this for a living and we're undisturbed. This is all we do during the day. So just imagine if your service managers or your parts managers, if you ask them to go ahead and do this for you, they have a business to run. So in order to find a spare 40, 50 hours of time is not very likely to happen very quickly. And we get lots of calls that, hey, it's just too time consuming. Can you do this for us? So keep that in mind. It is a very time consuming process. And then of course, when you're all done, you have to make sure that the analysis complies with the statute and there aren't any mistakes, because I will tell you, the manufacturers look for ways not to pay you. They don't want to pay you retail pricing. So they're going to look at your analysis, and if they find mistakes that or issues that don't comply with the statute, they'll reject you. They'll reject your submission. So it's very important that not only you get it right the first time, it has to be perfect. It's definitely not horseshoes. It's definitely perfection, or they will reject it. Okay, some other considerations. What's a qualified repair order? We touched on that already. It's something what we use in general terms, it's warranty-like, a warranty-like customer paid repair order. So simply something that would be covered under warranty, but the customer paid for it, that would be a repair order that we would use to make that calculation. And of course, there are exclusions. There are many statutes that allow you to exclude certain items. Good examples of these are maintenance items, things that the manufacturer would not pay for under warranty. So if you're going to do a maintenance operation on one of your units, that's not something that the manufacturer would pay for. And usually those are done at lower margins than the repair type work, what I call the brain surgery that we do every day. So that's a good thing. We're allowed to exclude those types of things. And of course, how do we handle discounts? That's a big subject. If you do any type of discounting for your work in your shop, you have to be aware that we have to account for those discounts, because it's the net price that the customer pays is the price that we have to use. So when you're looking at doing a retail warranty reimbursement submission, look ahead a little bit and prepare. So we'll talk a little bit about discounts and how you can handle those discounts and how you can mitigate those discounts. And again, what are my specific manufacturer's requirements? So we have to consider we have statutory requirements, and then we have the manufacturers, they interpret the statutes differently and they have their own requirements. So you have to understand what each manufacturer will allow you to do and what they won't allow you to do based on their interpretation of the statute. So that's something you really have to understand. And again, once you do all this, you have to evaluate the gross margin on all the qualified repair orders.
Great, thanks, Ken. So just to kind of discuss the slide here about submitting your claim. When you're preparing to submit your claim to the manufacturer, there are 3 key points to remember: notification, accuracy, and experience. First, for notification, you need to identify the proper points of contact. Always send proper notification to the manufacturer that you are indeed making the submissions. Accuracy. It's crucial to conduct the proper data analysis, identify the appropriate ROs, as Ken was just discussing. Perfection is so important, otherwise the submission can be rejected. Lastly, experience. Mistakes are likely to occur if you have someone to do your submissions that doesn't have the necessary experience and knowledge regarding the submission process and all the applicable statutory guidelines.
Yeah, thanks, Keith. And that's a good point. I'm gonna, I'll be completely transparent. We've been doing this for many, many years. I've been doing this for over 20 years myself. And it truly is not possible to do one of these without making some sort of mistake. So therefore, we have a quality control process. Every one of our submissions gets a second set of eyes. So in other words, our analysts will prepare a submission then it will come to me or another member of our team, and we will review that submission to make sure it's compliant with the statute, and make sure that there aren't any mistakes. So just imagine when you're reviewing 1,000 repair orders and you're going through those, it's very easy to make a very small mistake. So for example, if you do a typo, if you enter an amount incorrectly, well, the manufacturer can reject your submission because you entered $20.03 instead of $20.30. So little things like that make a big difference. So again, like Keith said, it is extremely important that the submission is exactly correct. Otherwise, they can and will reject it based on the smallest of things. So one of the things we want to talk about is how to maximize your results. So if you want to submit and you want to receive retail pricing, here's some of the things that you need to do to maximize those results. First, before you do your submission, develop a plan to increase the margins on your customer pay work. So for example, make sure that you are charging the correct labor rates and parts markups in your market area, your area of responsibility. It's always amazes me on the automotive side where we'll have clients that really they haven't checked their market, and they could be $20 or $30 below the labor rate in their market and not even know it. So those are some of the things that you have to take a look at. Then identify ways of improving your margins based on that market analysis. Do I raise my labor rate? Should I implement a parts pricing matrix? And if you have any questions about what a matrix is or how to implement that, feel free to ask me. You can email me and I'll tell you about that. Same thing with a labor pricing grid. If you're not familiar with that, we can talk about that too. So those are some of the ways that you can prepare and maximize your results, is to really look hard at your market and make sure that you're priced accordingly and you're priced correctly. And again, retaining a professional, it does save time. It gets the profit to you quicker. You know, if it takes you 2 months to get your analysis done in-house, that's 2 months of lost gross profit. So just keep that in mind too. How quickly can you get it done, and can you get it done without making any errors? So our firm, we have a team of analysts. All of us have been in the fixed operations field for many, many years. We have lots of experience. And I don't want to make this a commercial for us, because it's not. I want it to be informative, and I just want to be transparent of what it actually takes to do these, so you have a good understanding. Also, this is a legal process. So you really need to have somebody behind you in case you need that legal team to work for you. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes you do need a legal opinion, or you need a legal response. Maybe the manufacturer does not agree with your submission or how you did your submission, and it could require a legal response. So it's important that you have that on your side when you do your submissions.
Great, thanks, Ken. Just to continue along with what Ken was saying, it's a very time and work intensive process. Applying for retail warranty reimbursement does involve the practice of law and real keen analytical ability. And just to continue along with some of the message I was talking about earlier, it's really crucial to use counsel who is knowledgeable in this subject matter and well-versed in the legal intricacies involved in whatever state you may be in. So I would recommend to have your attorney prepare your submission on your letterhead, and have your attorney respond to any potential objections that may come through regarding your submission. And by having your attorney involved, you can ensure that all pertinent issues are raised and addressed thoroughly from a legal perspective.
Great, thanks, Keith. So, you know, we hear some common questions and objections that we hear from some of our clients. One of the most common questions we get from our dealers is, hey, I'm afraid of retaliation from my manufacturer if I go ahead and submit for retail reimbursement. You know, it's really been our experience. We just don't see that. Is it possible to happen? I guess, but we in the real world, out there in the wild, we just don't really see that. And we, like I said, we've been doing this for over 20 years. And, you know, even in the early days of retail reimbursement, you know, the most I've ever seen is maybe a little saber rattling where your rep will say, hey, you know, do you really want to do this? And that's about it. And that was 20 years ago. We don't even hear that anymore. So it's just become routine business for the manufacturers. So they know what the statutes are. They know what you're entitled to receive. So it's not going to be a surprise to them that you submit for retail warranty reimbursement. They know you're entitled to it. So if you're in a state that has the statute, they know that you're entitled to it. So it's not going to be a big deal. The other one we hear is, this is something we can do ourselves. And can we do it ourselves? Certainly you can, but hopefully I've outlined some of the things that you need to do to make sure that it gets done correctly. And you have to remember, is it worth the amount of time to tackle this yourself? And if you've never done one and you do your first one, you're certainly going to have mistakes. So, you know, the bottom line is you're better off having a professional, whether it's us or if you have somebody else do it that's done them before. I think that's your best bet. So here's some tips to maximize your results. And these are some of the common things that we see. Discounts, that's the biggest thing that we see that will negatively impact the outcome of your submission. So, you know, we always advise our clients to limit or eliminate your discounts on repair type work, the work that's going to be used to establish what your parts markup is and what your labor rates are. The maintenance work, you can go ahead and you can discount those. Those are highly competitive items, even in the RV world. You can discount those. That's not going to affect us because we don't use those types of repairs to establish what your rates are. But on what I call the brain surgery, the repair type work, don't discount it, because that's the work we're going to use. Those are the repairs we're going to use to establish your rates. So if you give a client a 10 or a 20% discount, that's going to knock your rate down. So keep that in mind. If you do any discounting, and sometimes you have to, it's not, you can't avoid it. Discount the parts when you're applying for labor. So if we're going to do a labor rate submission, don't discount the labor. If we're going to do a parts submission, don't discount the parts, discount the labor. So I think that kind of makes sense, but you know, believe it or not, that's something we have to talk about because we really need to understand how the discounting works and how it's applied. So keep that in mind. And when you do a discount, clearly label the discount as either a parts discount or a labor discount, because if it's not labeled correctly, we have to use that discount and apply it to both parts and labor. So you have to understand, you have to make sure that you clearly indicate that this $20 discount is for parts or this $20 discount is for labor, so we can make sure that it gets applied correctly. And make sure if you do any discounts, you can do what I call a repair line discount, not a repair order discount. So for instance, if you have two lines on the repair order, one's a maintenance line, right? And the other one is your brain surgery or repair line, the one that you don't want to discount. Put the discount and apply it to the first line, the maintenance line. If you apply the discount to the entire repair order, that means you have to allocate that discount to both repair lines, not just the maintenance line, but you have to allocate it to the repair line. So that's really important to remember when you do discounting. Implement a labor pricing grid. I touched on that a little bit. If you have any questions about what a grid is, please let me know. But a labor pricing grid is used for repair type work. And basically what it does is the rate increases as the complexity of the work increases. So for example, if you're doing really complex work, you charge a little bit more in your rate for that type of work, as opposed to doing maintenance work where you don't charge that high rate for the brain surgery that we do. So that's basically what a labor pricing grid is. Retail parts pricing matrix is a pricing strategy that charges based on your retail pricing or MSRP, something above MSRP. So manufacturer's suggestive retail price is just that. That's the suggestive retail price. You can go above that. And that's what a pricing matrix will do. So we can provide you with those as well. And again, charge your door rate for everything you do except for the highly competitive maintenance items such as oil changes, tire work if you do tire work, and other routine maintenance operations, because these are generally exempt from the calculation that establishes your retail labor rate and parts markup.
Great. Thanks so much, Ken. Some great points there. As we're finishing up the presentation, I just want to re-emphasize a couple of things. Filing a statutory submission is your choice, and it can significantly increase your dealership profits immediately and for the future if it's done properly. As we've stated, it's vital to use a vendor such as us who has extensive legal and fixed ops experience. It'll allow you to have a real team behind you who can advise on the legal side of things, plus the analytical aspects of the data review, which Ken went into detail with, as in addition to the submission and the legal issues that may arise. As we've been saying, if you have any questions, which I'm sure you do, please email them to us. You'll see the email address on the last slide. You can give us a call as well, and we'd be happy to address everything in further detail, to discuss the process, to discuss your dealership in particular. And we could also provide complimentary projections so you could see the anticipated increases that we might be able to secure on your behalf, and just assist overall in maximizing your increases. Ken, unless you have anything else, I just want to thank you again to Phil and the RVDA for providing us the platform to discuss retail warranty reimbursement with you. We hope it's been beneficial to all of you. We know we've given you a lot of information to digest, but we're here to help you if you need, and thank you again.
Thank you, everybody, and we
Thanks,
appreciate your
everybody.
time, and we've kind of timed it out with about 2 minutes left. Thanks, Phil. Everybody have a great day.